So at the heart of the system is this 1.5-liter petrol engine connected to the motors, and there's a battery, BYD Blade battery, which is placed in the center of this frame.
Many car lovers know Toyota as one of the biggest names in the auto industry. But something unexpected is now happening in the electric car world. Toyota has reportedly made a surprising move involving BYD, one of China's biggest EV makers. And the news has caught many people off guard. The move could change how Toyota competes in the fast-growing EV market. So, what exactly has Toyota done with BYD? And why are people saying the EV industry was not ready for what just happened? Toyota BYD partnership. The car is called the Toyota BZ3. It is a fully electric sedan made for the Chinese market. If you saw one parked on the street, you probably would not notice anything unusual about it. It has clean lines, the familiar Toyota badge, and the solid build quality the brand is known for. But once you look at what is powering the car, things get much more interesting. The battery inside this Toyota was designed by BYD. If you do not closely follow the car industry, BYD may not mean much to you yet, but it is a major Chinese company, not a small startup. BYD is one of the world's biggest electric vehicle makers, even larger than Tesla by some measures, and it is also a direct competitor to Toyota. And this was not a simple deal where Toyota bought a few parts from another company. Toyota went directly to one of its biggest rivals and basically said, "We want your battery in our car." To build the BZ3, Toyota created a joint venture with BYD called BYD Toyota EV Technology. Toyota also brought in FAW Toyota, its longtime Chinese partner, to produce and sell the car. This was much more than a simple partnership. More than 100 Toyota engineers from design, production, and quality control worked alongside BYD engineers to build the car together. They worked on everything from the battery structure and cooling system to the safety features. The result was an electric sedan that could travel more than 600 kilometers on a single charge using BYD's battery technology and Toyota's electronics. Production began in 2023, and the car is already being driven on real roads. Now, stop and think about how unusual that really is. This is Toyota, the company that spent decades building a reputation for doing things its own way. It was known for having strong control over its supply chain and depending heavily on its own technology. This is also the company behind the Prius, a car that helped make fuel efficiency a major part of the modern car industry. So, for a company like Toyota to reach across the table and use one of its rivals' most important technologies, something serious must have been happening behind the scenes. So, how did one of the world's most self-reliant car makers end up here? To understand that, you have to look at the big bet Toyota made and the man who was leading the company. For years, the public face of Toyota's strategy was its chairman, Akio Toyoda, the grandson of the company's founder. He was openly skeptical about fully electric cars. While one competitor after another announced plans to go fully electric, Toyota continued to support what Toyota called a multi-pathway strategy. Instead of putting everything into battery-powered cars, Toyota spread its focus across hybrids, hydrogen vehicles, and cleaner gasoline engines. As recently as early 2024, Toyota predicted that fully electric cars would reach only about 30% of the global market. In his view, the rest would continue to rely on hybrids, hydrogen, and other technologies. The company had already sold tens of millions of hybrid vehicles. It was one of the biggest names in that market. If the world was going to take many years to move fully toward electric cars, Toyota's slow and careful strategy could have looked like a smart move. Meanwhile, companies rushing into fully electric vehicles could end up spending huge amounts of money on a future that had not arrived yet. Environmental groups placed Toyota near the bottom of the auto industry when it came to its move toward electric vehicles. Even some of Toyota's own shareholders openly criticized the company for falling behind. To many people around the world, Toyota began to look like a giant that was refusing to change direction. Then China happened, and it happened very quickly. Why did Toyota suddenly need help from BYD? Could BYD's rise actually change Toyota's future in the world's biggest car market? Let's find out. The EV battle that changed everything. Back in 2020, electric cars and plug-in hybrids, which China calls new energy vehicles, were still a small part of the Chinese car market. But that small share was growing very quickly, almost doubling again and again. By 2023, new energy vehicles made up about 35% of all passenger cars sold in China. That was roughly 7.7 million cars in just 1 year. In some months, more than half of all new cars sold in China were either fully electric or plug-in hybrids. In just 4 years, gasoline cars lost ground in the world's biggest car market. Chinese EVs became cheaper, more advanced, and increasingly appealing. Packed with technology and improving rapidly, they often cost less than comparable gasoline cars, changing consumer preferences. For a Chinese customer walking into a showroom, an electric car could simply be the better deal. And that was a serious problem for a company like Toyota. Toyota had built its reputation on being reliable, practical, and good value for money. But suddenly, Chinese companies were beating Toyota at the same things Toyota had been known for, and they were doing it in Toyota's own market. One company was leading this change, BYD. Then, in March 2022, BYD made a major decision that shocked the traditional car industry. It completely stopped making regular gasoline-powered cars. No more pure gasoline cars. BYD decided to focus fully on battery-powered vehicles and plug-in hybrids. That decision paid off. BYD eventually captured around 1/3 of China's entire new energy vehicle market. While Toyota was still carefully protecting its successful hybrid business, BYD was building the electric future that Toyota had expected to arrive much later. Suddenly, Toyota had a problem that its hybrid technology couldn't solve. China is the world's largest car market, and Toyota sells a huge number of vehicles there. If Chinese customers continued moving toward electric cars this quickly, Toyota needed a strong electric vehicle of its own. Without one, Toyota wasn't just risking a small drop in sales. It could lose its position in one of the most important car markets in the world. But creating a truly competitive electric car battery from scratch takes a long time. The battery has to be affordable, safe, powerful, and reliable enough to compete with the best products already on the market. That kind of development can take years. Toyota didn't have years. It needed a solution immediately. Toyota is the company that helped change the way the entire world builds cars. Its famous production system is studied in business schools, and other car companies have spent decades trying to copy it. Yet now, Toyota was turning to a Chinese company that wasn't even making cars 20 years earlier. Toyota needed access to advanced battery technology, and BYD already had it. How did BYD turn battery safety into one of its biggest advantages over other car makers? Could BYD's Blade battery be the technology that finally makes people stop fearing EV fires? Let's take a closer look. BYD's secret weapon. BYD was not originally a car company. It started in 1995 as a battery maker, producing the small batteries used in phones and laptops. For decades, BYD focused on one thing: becoming extremely good at making batteries. So when the company finally moved into electric cars, it had a major advantage. It already understood the most important and expensive part of an EV. It simply had to build the car around the battery. That advantage became known as the Blade battery. But to understand why Toyota was interested in BYD's technology, you first need to understand one of the biggest fears people have about electric cars: fire. EV batteries store a huge amount of energy in a small space. If a battery is badly damaged, it can overheat, catch fire, and become extremely difficult to stop. This dangerous chain reaction is called thermal runaway. For electric car makers, preventing this from happening is one of the biggest safety challenges. In 2020, BYD decided to show the world why it believed its Blade battery was safer. The company carried out something called a nail penetration test and recorded the entire test on video. The test was simple but extreme. A fully charged battery is placed under pressure when a steel nail is driven straight through it. This creates a short circuit, which is one of the worst things that can happen to a battery. BYD tested 3 different batteries. The first was a standard nickel-based battery, similar to the type used in many EVs at the time. Once the nail went through it, the battery's humidity surface temperature climbed above 500 degrees Celsius, and it caught fire. Next came a regular lithium iron phosphate battery. It did not catch fire, but its surface temperature still reached somewhere between 200 degrees Celsius and 400 degrees Celsius. That was hot enough to cook an egg placed on top of it. Then came the Blade battery. BYD drove the nail straight through it, just like the others. But the result was very different. There was no fire, no smoke, and the battery's surface temperature barely changed, staying between 30 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees Celsius. BYD was showing the world that it believed it had found a better way to deal with one of the biggest safety concerns surrounding electric cars. And this was important, because fire fears were one reason some people were still nervous about buying an EV. Whenever videos of electric cars catching fire went viral, they could make people even more worried about the technology. BYD had now produced a simple demonstration that gave it a strong answer to that fear. But the Blade battery had other advantages too. It uses lithium iron phosphate, or LFP, chemistry. This type of battery can be cheaper than nickel-cobalt-based batteries used by many competitors. It also does not require cobalt, which is expensive and has raised serious concerns about the conditions under which it is mined. BYD also came up with a clever way to arrange the battery cells. The cells are long and thin, which is why they are called Blade batteries. They can be packed closely together, allowing BYD to fit more battery capacity into the available space. And there was another big advantage: durability. BYD says the Blade battery can handle thousands of charging cycles. In practical terms, that means the battery could potentially last longer than the vehicle itself. That matters, because the battery is usually the most expensive single part of an electric car. BYD founder Wang Chuanfu has said that the battery can account for as much as 40% of an EV's total cost. And that was exactly where BYD's strength came from. It had a battery that was cheaper, safer, durable, and already being produced in very large numbers. Why would Toyota turn to its biggest EV rival for help? How did BYD go from being laughed at to becoming one of the world's biggest EV makers? Let's take a closer look. Toyota BYD JV strategy. Toyota didn't simply give BYD money, put a Toyota badge on a BYD car, and call it a day. Instead, the two companies created a joint venture, meaning they formed a shared company where both sides contribute what they do best. BYD brings its batteries, electric motors, and years of experience building electric cars. Toyota, meanwhile, brings something BYD is still working to build: decades of engineering experience, a worldwide reputation for reliability, strict quality control, and a brand that people around the world already trust. Almost overnight, Toyota gets a competitive electric car for the Chinese market using technology that has already been tested. It doesn't have to spend years and billions of dollars trying to create an advanced battery from scratch. But Toyota didn't simply take a BYD battery and put it into a Toyota. Its engineers changed the battery structure, improved the cooling system, upgraded the safety monitoring, and adjusted the entire setup to meet Toyota's own standards. So the customer gets BYD's battery technology combined with Toyota's approach to quality and reliability. And this wasn't just a one-time move. Because Toyota was desperate, the company continued expanding its electric car lineup in China instead of backing away. In other words, Toyota wasn't giving up. It was preparing for the next stage of the competition. This is the part many people miss when they describe the BYD deal as a defeat. Toyota didn't suddenly forget how to build cars. It made a practical decision. With time running out, using BYD's battery technology made more sense than spending years trying to create something similar from scratch. That's not what a company does when it has surrendered. It's what a company does when it wants to buy itself more time. While many people thought Toyota was falling behind, the company was quietly working on another technology that could change the electric car industry: solid-state batteries. If BYD's Blade battery is a breakthrough, solid-state batteries could go even further and potentially change the rules for the entire EV industry, including BYD. Almost every electric car battery available today, including BYD's Blade battery, uses a liquid or gel material inside the battery to help move energy. Solid-state batteries replace that liquid with a solid material. That simple change could bring several major benefits. The battery could store more energy without becoming heavier. That could mean much longer driving ranges. It could also allow cars to charge much faster. Safety could improve too, because there would be no flammable liquid inside the battery that could catch fire. Toyota is aiming for energy density that could be around twice what today's batteries can achieve. That's a massive jump in an industry where even small improvements can take years. For a long time, solid-state batteries have been called the holy grail of electric cars. Early solid-state batteries had serious problems. Some cracked, while others lost performance too quickly. That made them too unreliable and expensive for everyday use. Many companies have promised to solve these problems, but very few have managed to turn solid-state technology into a practical mass-market battery. Toyota isn't the only company chasing it. Nissan, Honda, and BMW are also working on the technology, and that tells just how valuable the prize could be. But Toyota believes it may have an answer to one of the biggest problems that has held solid-state batteries back for years: durability. The cells used to wear out too quickly. Toyota now claims it has found a way to solve that problem. Is Toyota secretly using BYD today to prepare for an EV breakthrough tomorrow? Could Toyota's 10-minute solid-state battery finally change the EV industry? Let's find out. Toyota EV battery plans. Toyota says it plans to introduce its first solid-state batteries around 2027 to 2028. If the company hits its targets, the results could be a big deal for the entire EV industry. Toyota is aiming for around 1,000 kilometers of driving range on one charge. It also wants the battery to go from 10% to 80% in about 10 minutes, roughly the time it takes to grab a coffee. To make this possible, Toyota has spent years working with Japanese materials companies. Sumitomo Metal Mining is helping on one side, while Idemitsu Kosan is working on the other. Together, they are trying to solve the difficult problem of producing solid-state batteries on a large scale. By late 2025, Toyota had received official approval in Japan to begin production. The first vehicles expected to use this technology will likely carry the Lexus badge, Toyota's luxury brand. That makes sense because new technology is expensive at first, and luxury cars can better absorb those extra costs. But there is an important detail here. The 1,000 kilometers range figure comes from China's testing system, which is known for giving higher range numbers than drivers usually get in real life. On an actual highway, the range would probably be lower. And these numbers are still targets. You can't walk into a Toyota dealership tomorrow and buy a solid-state car with this kind of performance. That is worth keeping in mind, because battery technology has a long history of making huge promises in announcements and then taking years to reach the market. So, don't take the numbers as guaranteed, But even if the real-world results are lower, a Toyota that could charge in about 10 minutes and travel much farther than today's EVs would be a serious competitor. And Toyota isn't simply sitting around waiting for solid-state batteries to arrive. In the meantime, the company is also working on better versions of its regular batteries. Toyota is targeting around 1,000 kilometers of range with a charging time of about 20 minutes. Now the bigger strategy starts to make sense. In the short term, Toyota is using BYD's battery technology to remain competitive in China right now. Toyota knows it cannot yet build something better on its own, so it is working with one of its biggest competitors. But in the long term, Toyota is putting serious effort into solid-state batteries. If the technology works as planned, it could help Toyota move ahead of not only Western car makers, but possibly BYD as well. In other words, Toyota is using its competitor's biggest strength as a bridge to the future. It can compete today while saving its biggest investments for the technology it believes will matter most in the years ahead. So, what do you think about Toyota's partnership with BYD? Will it shake the EV industry? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.